From the state capitol, the Capitol Report with Senator Dave Cox. And now, the Capitol Report.
Today we're joined by Northern California's most respected radio reporters, KFBK's Bob Moffett and KXJZ's Marianne Russ. Bob and Marianne are here today in our Capitol studios to talk about the challenges of covering state politics for radio listeners. We're delighted to have you, Marianne, and Bob. Thanks for being here. This is a role reversal, if you will. You know, it's one thing to be asked the questions. It's another thing to be asking the questions. So let's begin. And again, let me thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. We'll do our best to not disappoint.
Yeah, we're enjoying the role reversal.
Speak for yourself.
Well, we'll see her.
Well, let's begin, if we can, by Marianne. Let's start with you. How did you get in this business? You were talking a few minutes ago about the fact that you did some student work, graduate work or undergraduate work.
I actually did both. I always liked to write, even in high school, did the good old high school paper and yearbook and all that, and I did a job shadowing at a local TV station when I was in high school and kind of thought, okay, you know, this is the thing for me, broadcasting, it's so exciting. Then when I got into college, I learned about the public radio station, and I worked there all 4 years. I'd be, you know, overnight jazz DJ, I'd be reporting on city council or anchoring the morning show. I'd get up at 4 a.m., do the morning show, then go to class. Wasn't so good for the class always.
I understand.
And then I just essentially have been in broadcasting the rest of my career, public radio, a little bit of commercial radio, and a little bit of commercial TV, a little public TV, but mostly radio.
Bob, how about you?
I have to blame it on a girl. I had a crush on a girl in my junior year in high school, and I joined the school paper so I could hang out with her a little bit more, and found out to my dismay that she had moved on to drama or something else, and then I was stuck at the paper, and then I just ended up liking it and went to college and decided I wanted to do it full time. And after a myriad of jobs here and there, behind the camera, in front of the camera, and behind the microphone, have ended up here as well.
And you never thought about being a sportscaster?
Well, I was actually for a brief time, couple summers in Reno, did some minor league baseball and a particularly unpleasant 10 games in southern Utah, and decided that, and was decided for me that that might not have been the career for me.
Wasn't your cup of tea?
Well, it was. I enjoyed it greatly. I was just horrible at it. So I went on to other things and ended up finding news and radio and something I still enjoy.
Well, let's talk about the aspect of what's the biggest challenges in covering politics specifically on radio. Marianne?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, and I'm guessing Bob faces a similar one, is that a lot of the stories we do are shorter, even shorter than the typical TV story. And in a minute, it's hard to talk about the budget or something like that, or explain Prop 98. And, you know, there's a lot of very complex, intense things going on at the Capitol, and it is hard to encapsulate them. I'm lucky that occasionally I get to do the longer form 4 and 5 minute pieces, and that's when you can really dig into the details. But the everyday news story is around a minute long, and that's hard to do at the Capitol.
How about you, Bob?
I echo her sentiments exactly, in that we have 45 seconds to tell you know, exactly what she said, the budget, Prop 98, you have you know, Prop 93, the term limits legislation. You have all these issues, and you're trying to break them down into their simplest form, and sometimes being long-winded and explaining every little detail is the easy way to go. Breaking it down into its very simplest form and the main nuggets that people need to know, that's the toughest thing.
You know, when how long have you been actually covering, Bob? How long are the politics in Sacramento?
In Sacramento, going on 2.5 years since I came here.
And did you cover politics in Nevada as well?
Occasionally I did. Most of my political background is actually sitting in county supervisors meetings with my dad, who was a county supervisor down in Mariposa for 18 years.
My goodness. How about you, Marianne?
I've been at Capitol Public Radio covering the Capitol for a couple years, and I covered it quite a bit when I was at KFBK for a year before that. And my other, political coverage experience is good old city council meetings and Athens and Oxford, Ohio, and places like that. Very long city council meetings.
Well, then let me ask you about.
Are there any other kind, really?
Let me ask you about whether or not the coverage of state politics has changed since you've been on the Capitol beat, Bob.
I think my coverage of it has changed just in that I'm a lot more familiar with the subjects that I'm dealing with, and so I'm more able to get to the things that aren't being said. There's always a background story, or there are always issues behind anyone's proposals for laws that they don't want you to know about, and sometimes for very good reason, because they're wildly unpopular, and when people find out about them, then they instantly dislike the bill. And it's not necessarily that we're always trying to find the things that are wildly unpopular, but there's always a second side to a story, and it's trying to find that. So I think my coverage of items has changed in that I've become more comfortable with the issues. I know the people more intimately, and I'm able to get to the real story more quickly.
How about you, Marianne?
Oh, that's definitely true. I mean, the longer you're here, you get the context of what people are saying. You know what's code for we need to raise taxes, as opposed to maybe when you first start out, having an honest discussion about something sounded like an honest discussion. So that's certainly part of it. The other thing that I would point out is on the technical end of things, even in the past few years, what I'm required to do each day has changed in that I'm doing the stories, but I'm also doing interviews with our hosts from time to time, so question and answer sessions for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, so you really have to know your stuff. And then a lot of times now I take pictures too, because the web has become this huge component, and probably for Bob too, even for radio. So, we're posting stuff on the web every day, and I'm out there with my camera in one hand and the microphone in the other, and it gets a little tricky sometimes.
Well, let's talk about a typical day from that standpoint then. How do you begin, Bob? What time does your day begin, for example?
My day begins at 10 o'clock. I roll in, and usually a news director or one of our editors has some story that's going on. There's something that's already planned, and so we sort of do reactionary news coverage, as it were, depending on what it is. Either it's the Capitol or somewhere else. Occasionally I'll come in with a story idea of my own that if none of the stories that they already have set up are all that earth-shattering, then I might be able to do something that I'd like to do too. And if we come down here, then like she said, we have our cell phone cameras, and then we also have the microphones, and our day is going to change here very quickly. At least mine is. I know KFBK.com is going to have a lot more pictures, a lot more video. We just got new cameras, so we're going to be probably responsible for doing more of that, and we may very well end up being more like television reporters online sooner rather than later. Yeah. So that's how our day starts. I'm not sure how our day is going to end, though, here very soon.
They're obviously, because of your 24-hour stations, you've got one or two other people doing exactly the same thing that you're doing on a daily basis. But let me just ask you, Marianne, somebody give you a quote as to how many stories you need to turn in on a daily basis?
No, it really depends on the news of the day, because I work for KXJZ, but I also run a statewide news service. So there's close to 3 million listeners around California who are getting their political coverage from myself and my colleague Jenny O'Mara. It's basically the two of us, and we cover the news of the day. So some days that might be 5 stories, and some days it might only be 1 or 2. But when there aren't any clear stories, say around the end of December, when it's kind of a slow time, you still have to have a story. So there's a lot of enterprise reporting that goes on, looking into issues, trying to find other angles and things. So really, we're required to have at least a couple of stories every day, and some days we'll have a lot. A typical day is 9 a.m., 7 p.m. maybe, but say the state of the state, we were there till midnight, or, So I have all these different stations, right, and they'll request certain things sometimes, and so I need to get a San Diego lawmaker too, and I need to get somebody from Redding, and so it really varies.
So you really got two different operations, though, Bob, because you've got more of a regional approach,